Commence the destruction.
Sir, I'm Wayne Dennison. We haven't met. But
I apologize for what I'm about to do. You.
I like to tell you my name before I fuck you.
Let's start with what you finished with. You understand that the court
I'd buy you dinner first.
asked by Ms. Heard's counsel to order a medical exam of Mr. Depp, and those motions were denied.
I think your team told the court you didn't want to have them, and the court
Agreed
ruled on
with
it.
you.
I don't think the court proactively did it. You kind of had a motion to them, right?
No.
No.
Ms. Heard's lawyers moved for them and asked for them and did not get them. Isn't that right, sir?
If you're saying that's what happened, my understanding of was that you all did not want.
Oh, you know better, buddy.
to go on. They petitioned for it. The court said no. Yes, that's what my understanding of it was.
The court said no to ordering Mr. Depp to do the medical exam.
Right. I said the court did not require it. Right.
And there was one that was ordered, in fact, right?
There was.
All right.
Wow. We're off to a great start here.
This is going to be a fantastic follow-up question to this is, did you review Miss Heard's, were you asked to review Miss Heard's diagnoses or any of it?
All right.
So
So
do your impression of a deer
the
in the
last thing
headlights
you
again.
talked about
Rats.
was
You-
the
you lost that
Goldwater
one.
rule.
Yes, sir.
Been around for almost 50 years, right?
Yeah, I'm 59. That sounds about right.
Yeah. And it's been around as a result of a presidential election that you referenced.
Yes.
And who has that rule? What organization maintains that rule?
The American Psychiatric Association.
An association you're a member of.
Association that I'm a member of. Yes.
Aren't you a fellow or something?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So, and this is an ethical rule, right?
It is an ethical rule. And yes, it's ethical. They say rules. It's an ethical guideline. Yes, they're guidelines.
You can bend them.
More of a
We
guideline.
know that over time, the American Psychiatric Association has amended the rule, so it's not just about diagnoses, but it's also about professional opinions.
Could you be more specific? Say about professional opinion.
A man who's trying to figure out where he's ultimately going with the question.
Let me read this and see if you're familiar with it.
Oh, this is good.
It is unethical for a psychiatrist to offer a professional opinion about an individual based on publicly available information without conducting an examination. That's the rule, right?
Ooh.
If you're reading it directly, I will believe you.
Okay.
You don't know? Aren't you the expert?
Aren't you a
However,
fellow from that organization?
diagnosis is not required for an opinion to be professional. So my question is, it's not just diagnosis that this Goldwater rule applies to, it's professional opinions.
So again, I will reiterate that would come down to essentially nullifying witness testimony, expert witness testimony.
No, it
without
wouldn't.
No.
You have to examine
direct
the patient.
evaluation.
Exactly.
As we know, it didn't happen. But regardless of that, the whole expert witness testimony thing would be basically
Sir, are you an
rendered
expert
null-
on witness
null and
testimony?
void.
Basically.
Exactly.
In fact,
Exactly.
Contemplates that issue, doesn't
Oh,
it, sir?
shit.
Again, I'm just telling you the answer to the question. When you're reading me those statements,
How do you know the answer if you don't
Good
know?
question.
the response
He
by
doesn't
the
even know
other
the
side, who publishes also, is that if that was the case, there could be no expert witness testimony in the courtroom.
Incorrect.
Psychiatrists are ethically prohibited from evaluating individuals without permission or other authorization, such as a court order. That's the rule, right?
Again, if you're reading that, then I have to believe you're not misrepresenting it. And I would come back to,
How
again,
would he know he's in the rules of his profession if he doesn't know what the
you
rules
might
are?
as well get rid of all the expert witnesses we've had throughout all of time for court proceedings. Because what you're saying is unless a court orders it, and that's what you just said.
That's great. Let this
JP
guy
said,
do this all day.
Then, therefore, expert witnesses cannot do an evaluation
This is-
based on an
No, you-
observation of the medical
Correct.
records.
You
Insurance
can't.
companies cannot do evaluations solely based on medical records where they're
Correct.
doctors rendering professional opinions. So at
There's
the
no
end of the day,
prevention from
we're essentially
offering
saying
a professional opinion if you
unless
actually
someone has
talk to the
directly evaluated
person.
it, this whole medical system we have, this whole legal system we have, is null and void.
I'm
Nope.
not saying
No, yes,
anything.
you are, sir. No, you are.
Give me a second, and I'll
Okay.
give you more than a second.
Wow, what a
What
jackass.
I'm saying and what I am reading to you is a rule by your organization that takes into account that there could be court orders that would permit the exact kind of evaluation that you say I'm eliminating.
And I think we're going in circles because I think I just said that means expert witness testimony would not be allowed, and the
He's trying to
branch
do an
of
appellate
forensic
argument.
psychiatry
Expert
would
witness
be
testimony is
especially
about
hindered. And
generalities.
we know the branch of forensic psychiatry does not prohibit that. So I am a member of the APA. That doesn't necessarily mean every single thing they put in there, everybody has to uncategorically agree with, because clearly that's
I don't
not.
have to follow my professional guidelines.
That
I don't agree with a lot of the Utah State bar rules, but I still have to follow them.
inconsistent with the Goldwater rule.
Yeah, my first was inconsistent. If we're saying that if the Goldwater rule says, and I very much said that during deposition, that the Goldwater rule was made for presidents and public figures such as
Oh,
that.
really?
Public
It's only for
That's what it
presidents?
was made for.
Public
It's not
figures.
made for Hollywood. But I'll even take that Mr. Depp's a public.
Really?
What I'm saying to you is that the Goldwater rules say we cannot do any expert witness testimony in our field. That is exactly what the Goldwater rule is
Your
saying.
Honor, I'd ask to
based on
disqualify him as a
exactly
witness.
What you read, and I'm just telling you what you are
Move to
saying.
disqualify
That
him.
rule encompasses.
What I'm asking you, sir,
I'd move to
is
strike him.
did you comply with the ethical requirements of the APA when rendering the professional opinions that you've rendered today?
It is a requirement of the APA. It is not the requirement of the APA.
What does that mean?
Secondarily,
So the answer is no?
Secondarily, again, in order to not,
Your Honor, order the witness to answer the
because there's an
question.
expert witness before me. There's an expert witness everyone brought in. So all I'm saying to you, that means the whole field of medical legal law is corrupt and unethical for engaging
Move
in
to
an act
strike
that the
him.
APA clearly says we should not do. So if you're saying that, then the answer is yes, I'm agreeing with that statement.
Huh.
Holy shit.
You agree that the APA would deem your testimony and your professional
Benju.
you're unethical.
I'm saying you are saying that I'm an expert witness. I'm saying as an expert
Are you now?
witness, and solely as an expert witness, that guideline is
Move to strike
permitting
him.
that from occurring. I would say then that the whole
What am I watching
expert
here?
witness testimony, again, would be disavowed by what you are quoting in the Goldwater rule. And we know that's not the case, because if it was, we would not be allowed to do it.
And you said the rule was for presidents, right? And
That was
public
initially for
figures.
press, yes.
And the name of the rule came from that. But the rule says it is unethical for a psychiatrist to offer a professional opinion about an individual. That's right, sir. It's not just presidents, it's not public figures, it's individuals.
Funny, it was named after according to your logic, if you don't put something in the title, it's not true.
Oh my
I
God,
told
this
you
guy's
this morning, I believe, about my
moron.
intimate partner violence. So what I would say to you then, sir, is that if you say this about an individual, again, any court would have to render an expert witness testimony invalid. Any doctor that reviews charts would have to render it invalid. I can go on the list of docs that do not see or interview patients directly, and that's a violation. So basically, you are saying that unless you do a direct clinical evaluation, then all of the field of forensic psychiatry and all of managed care is doing an unethical violation.
Unless the court orders it.
Seeing the president. We deny patients medications all the time without seeing them. We deny patients treatments, unfortunately, without seeing them. And I'm on the receiving end of that. So the answer to your question, again, unless you were saying to me that all of this is unethical, which is what you are saying. This is how I'm interpreting what you are saying to me. That unless you do
You don't have to interpret anything. You just read the rule.
therefore, it could not be considered ethical. And I'm telling you how that applicable to not just expert law, but also managed care. It's applicable to multiple branches of medicine. Hospital duration of hospitalization stay, they get evaluated. So tell me where you want me to end this.
You're doing fine.
Why don't we
talking.
talk about what you just testified to? Because I didn't ask you anything about that. I asked you whether this principle of medical ethics,
She's laughing
have
at
you
us.
acted unethically? Yes or no?
No, as an expert witness, I have not acted unethically. And if you want the jury to believe that expert witnesses are unethical, then I guess that's for them to decide.
Yes
And
or
that's
no,
for them
sir.
to
You
decide.
said no. Let's go to the next question.
Okay.
Right?
Oh my
God.
Psychiatric diagnosis occurs in the context of an evaluation based on thorough history taking,
Just keeps reading the rule.
examination,
Just read the
and where applicable, collated or collateral information. You'll agree with that?
I believe I said that earlier, yes.
And it's a departure from the methods of the profession to render an opinion without an examination and without conducting an evaluation in accordance with the standards of psychiatric practice, correct?
Well, again, by the way, for the record, intimate partner violence is not a psychiatric diagnosis. I'll start with that. Substance usage by themselves is not a psychiatric diagnosis. If you want to cut,
What is your opinion based on that? Because psychiatry said your area of expertise, right?
personality traits is not a
You
diagnosis.
said substance use disorder.
Ergo, I am basically commenting on the
He's
things that
fucking
are
ergo.
brought to me,
He's
which are
providing a
not
non-expert opinion.
diagnosis. But an evaluation, if I was going to treat a patient or anyone here, those are the steps I would take.
We, I think, started with the notion that this rule applies broader than diagnoses. It applies to professional opinions.
I believe
And
you
you've
just
rendered
quoted
professional opinions relative to narcissistic personality traits, haven't you, sir? Relative to Mr. Depp.
again. I believe you just commented on what it takes to do in a psychiatric evaluation to establish a diagnosis. I'm almost certain that's what you said. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you didn't say that, but I'm sure you did. And therefore, what I'm saying is neither IPV nor substance usage nor narcissistic personality traits a psychiatric diagnosis. And then
If I heard was going to have a psychiatrist, this would be the guy.
saying I acted unethically under the rubric of expert witness testimony. So if you, sir, would like to proceed that expert witnesses are unethical, based on that, I am not going to sit here and disagree with you and waste everyone's time. I think it's fairly obvious. But thank you. Go ahead. These were
thank
your
you.
words. I'm just saying what you're interpreting.
Okay.
He knows
don't
he's
recall-
Let's start with
destroying
the
this
easy
guy.
question.
I don't recall ever seeing anything
That was
quite
pretty
like
easy.
this
Go ahead.
in my life.
You're going to have to just answer the questions.
Okay. Sorry about that. I haven't been getting into it.
You need to just answer the questions.
Okay.
Start.
You're not rendering any
Called out.
diagnosis whatsoever
Sua sponte.
of Mr. Depp today or ever.
Gotcha.
Artie.
No, I probably would say to you that certainly I would not say narcissistic personality, or I would say traits. Certainly, from what I have read, intimate partner violence is not a diagnosis. So the answer is no to that. Narcissistic personality traits is not a diagnosis. The answer is no. But if you want to tell me that substance use disorder is a psychiatric diagnosis, the answer is yes. And
But that wasn't an issue, was it? Whether Mr. Depp used substances. I mean, you said you've gone through the record. That wasn't really an issue at this trial. He's said it from day one.
so you're saying he's already admitted to the diagnosis?
He's already admitted to the use of the substances.
Well, again, there's a difference between admitting to substance use and substance use disorder.
Let's go back to what you just said about narcissistic personality traits.
Yes.
Narcissistic personality disorder is a DSM-5 diagnosis, correct?
Correct.
Diagnostic personality, and you haven't testified that Mr. Depp has narcissistic personality disorder, have you?
I would certainly, if I didn't, I'm certainly thinking that, but at least I'm going to say he has traits, which are characteristics of provisional diagnosis of, it's a provisional diagnosis probably of narcissistic personality disorder. But yeah, I mean, I do believe that.
Well, when
at
you say
Smile.
provisional diagnosis, you know the DSM-5 requires, in order to find that diagnosis, 5 of the 9 factors.
Mhm.
And you haven't done that analysis. You've never made that diagnosis. You've just identified certain factors.
That are criteria for the diagnosis.
Right. But you need 5 of 9 to get to the diagnosis. You've already told us that you didn't make a diagnosis. You're just identifying traits, correct?
I'm identifying traits that are consistent with the diagnosis. Yes.
Right. And did you testify in deposition that the existence of traits, as opposed to the disorder, doesn't have a correlation with IPV?
If I said traits do not have a correlation with if that's what I said, and I don't remember saying that, but that wouldn't be a correct thing. Narcissism has a correlation with the diagnosis. Yes, that part's true.
All right, how far are we going to back this up? Because there's a diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder, right?
Yes, sir.
And that one is has some correlation with IPV, right?
Narcissism has correlation with IP. Again, sir, you're not allowing me to answer.
Breathing oxygen has correlation with that
You're
PP.
splitting hairs between the traits that are consistent with, which all I'm commenting on is behaviors and traits that are consistent with the diagnosis and Mr. Depp. Narcissism absolutely has risk factors associated with IPV.
Let's go back again, and maybe we can focus on the question I ask you, and we can get an answer that's addressed to that question.
Mhm.
Narcissistic personality disorder is a risk factor for IPV, yes or no?
Yes.
And you previously testified that there is no literature at which you are currently aware that the mere presence of narcissistic traits is a risk factor for IPV.
Am I answering the question?
Yes,
That's incorrect.
you didn't testify that.
A cluster B traits, which narcissistic personality disorder is part of, is a huge risk factor for intimate partner violence, which include cluster B traits include narcissistic personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder, amongst others. So the answer to the question is,
What about histrionic?
Histrionic.
every
What about borderline?
resource on intimate partner violence will support that cluster B traits, where narcissistic personality falls under, is a risk factor for intimate partner violence.
Any single trait is a risk factor for IPV.
Again, I will repeat, cluster B traits. I didn't say any trait. I said cluster. No,
Let me be more precise then.
okay.
Any narcissistic trait in and of itself is a risk factor for IPV.
But you are mischaracterizing what I said.
No.
What I said, I'm
question.
pretty sure I said cluster. If you look at all the intimate partner violence literature, and I would behoove you to do so, you will see
Of course.
cluster B traits. I didn't say narcissistic per se. Cluster B traits,
This is great.
where narcissistic personality disorder is part of, are risk factors for intimate partner violence, part and parcel, uniformly true. And I'm not sure, the thing I don't understand is, I'm not sure why we're arguing psychiatry, because I'm telling you what it is.
Dr. Siegel, you just need to answer the question.
Okay.
Twice.
So you want to talk about cluster B, so let's do that for a minute.
Uh-oh.
Here we go.
Borderline personality disorder is a risk factor for IPV.
As part of cluster B traits, yes.
Histrionic personality disorder
Here we
risk
go.
factor for IPV.
Less so.
It looks like they brought in extra bailiffs in the back of the courtroom.
It's a risk factor, but less. Less so. Significantly less so.
All right. So which traits under narcissistic, before I move on there's only been one diagnosis in court of personality disorders, correct?
I'm not sure who you're referring to. Are you referring to Mr. Depp, Ms. Heard? Who? I'm not sure what you were talking about.
Well,
Do
now
you
I would answer.
understand that there was a medical examination done of Miss Heard?
Yes, I did.
Do you understand that the testimony was ultimately that Ms. Heard suffers from 2 personality disorders?
Okay, so I'm just being specific. I just wanted to know if you're talking about Ms. Heard or Mr. Depp. So that's all I was asking you.
Oh, but no.
Yes
Are
or
you-
no?
Continue.
Which
Yep,
was
keep
his only
going.
All means.
one diagnosis of Ms. Heard was diagnosed with that.
Yeah. And both of the diagnoses are in cluster B, and both of them are risk factors for IPV.
But both those cluster B things are. I'm not allowed to comment on the testing, so therefore, all I
Oh,
can
wait,
say
why
is
not?
that
What?
cluster B trace, and I'll tell you what they are. And by the way, I testified this before, which was that 1, I don't expect perfection from my victims. 2,
I don't-
absolutely there were
you-
cluster B
you're-
trace Miss Heard had. Absolutely, Miss Heard had
Given
cluster
that you've testified to it before, let's move on to a new question.
That is straight out of the news articles that were
You-
over the weekend about
you get
imperfect
cheated.
victims.
Yep.
In your opinion today, that you thought,
That's the imperfect victim.
well, why don't we move a little different? Are you a member of the American Medical Association?
No.
Okay, so you don't know what the ethical rule of the American Medical Association is relative to doing clinical diagnoses about individuals you've never talked to.
So you're saying in terms of doing expert witness evaluations under that rubric, right?
I'm just asking you, do you know the AMA's rule?
Clearly not.
Under doing, you're saying
even know the APA
APA
rule.
ruling under the rubric of not doing evaluation with somebody you did not see, and I'm questioning. I'm asking. So you are talking about expert witness testimony.
No, I'm talking about, do you know the rule?
I'm not a member of the AMA, so I
Okay,
don't
great.
read the rule.
Okay.
Okay.
You move on. You don't
Say
know the rule.
no.
Yeah.
But you make me look stupid.
You rendered an opinion about Mr. Depp's purported cognitive impairment.
Yes.
What do you use as a baseline?
God, I'm just waiting for the referee to
Excellent.
stop the fight.
Processing speed.
This is a great
Yeah,
question.
for analyzing Mr. Depp before you watched his deposition.
What I use a baseline for that?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess my baseline would probably be what
He's
I
guessing.
have seen him interact in public. I
You're
have
still
seen
watching him
interact
on
with
movies and
others.
TV?
I've seen him interact in media. I've seen him interact and his process speed is certainly not slow. I've seen him do commercials. His process speed was not slow.
Good Lord.
At deposition, didn't you say that what you did was compare Mr. Depp's performance in lots of pirate movies against his deposition testimony
What
here?
I said was I've seen Mr. Depp do apology ads. I remember he did an apology ad with Bad Dog with no delay in process speed. I've seen him interact with the media regarding to that. I saw no delay in processing speed. All I'm saying
Let me
is
ask you about pirates, though. You compared pirates to the to the depositions given in this case.
then I apologize for what I said. Then
You
I misspoke.
apologize.
You just
Apologize?
make the comparison.
Right now, just a second ago. Just a second.
Johnny.
I may have said that I misspoke. I apologize. I misspoke.
Okay. Because
Look
you
at
know
Camille.
you can't compare pirates to sworn testimony, right?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Good.
But you can, but as an aside, you can judge someone's processing speed at
No,
any
you
time. Like
can't.
I'm judging
No.
yours right now, you're judging mine. We all
I
judge
mean,
process
scripted, memorized
baseline
statements.
of what we know about each other. I would say your process speed right now
I have
is not
never
slow.
judged anyone's
Now he's
processing.
diagnosed.
We judge
attorney.
processing speed. I'm just saying to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but no, any of Mr. Depp's other portrayals
He should
in
reveal he has a
movies,
learning
did that
disability
affect
and
your
his
analysis
processing
of
speed
processing
is slow.
speed?
Only I've seen him interact on interviews, and that was it.
Right.
When he wasn't in movies.
What, right. But Willy Wonka doesn't matter to you? You see him in that movie, Charlie Chocolate Factory? Did you look at that one when you were comparing his processing speed?
What the? Look at these lip movements.
fuck is he
What
doing?
is he doing with these lip movements?
There was
Yes,
no
you have to
objection.
answer the
Yeah.
question.
Yes, sir.
No, you'll be happy to know I didn't see Willy Wonka. I didn't see 21 Jump Street when it happened, or whatever it was about. No, I did not.
Holy
You made a very kind admission, I think, early on in your deposition, that you're not claiming to be a better actor than Mr. Depp. That's correct, isn't it?
100%.
Is there a mercy rule in cross-examination?
You know that actors actually rehearse for their parts and work on the language, diction, timing of their dialogue as part of that rehearsal?
If you say that, I'm not an actor, so I don't know what goes on. I can't tell you. I have no idea what goes on in acting.
Okay, but you don't know enough about
that actors memorize scripts.
Actors rehearse?
Sir, I am not an expert in acting. I have no idea what an actor does.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. See the smiles in the gallery? People are trying to hold in the laughter.
Look at Johnny. Yeah, all right, whatever, man. Sure,
Camille's like, I don't know what the fuck this guy's doing.
During your deposition, what were the circumstances under which you decided to call Mr. Depp an idiot?
Does somebody call Mr. Depp an idiot?
Yeah, you called Mr. Depp an idiot in your deposition. Why
okay. So I think it was in the context. I think it was in the. You probably should read the context of it, because I think the context was.
You tell us.
I'm trying to think back. Okay. And what I thought it was related to was if you're coming to some deposition, okay. And again, I'm thinking back. So
of all the experts in the world,
I don't. So I'm thinking back where he's coming in.
Best I heard you could come up with.
Europe for a deposition, video deposition that he gave, and he took an overnight.
I noticed the level on that Gatorade bottle's dropping a lot faster on cross than you sit on the leg.
He's about to add to it when he
Hold on.
To a trial that you're involved with. I have to think you'd be an idiot to come in the night before. All right. So I didn't call Mr. Depp an idiot. I certainly called that planning an idiot. I didn't call him an idiot.
So the words, so I mean he's an idiot, are
no, again, if I said it in that, if you just read one line, one snippet, I'm sure it was in the context. But again, you have it in front of you. I don't.
Yeah.
Is idiot a professional opinion?
I wasn't.
Yeah. Is it a psychiatric opinion?
And that follows the Goldwater rule.
What?
How does it follow the?
Oh, you just said that. I'm not rendering a professional opinion. I just said idiot. That's not a.
So idiot is not a professional opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Is it your
Oh my God.
practice to describe people as idiots?
My practice describe people in my practice. No, I don't describe people my clinical cases as idiots or patients as idiots or victims as idiots. No, sir.
But you sat for a deposition in this case and described.
I'm starting to feel bad for this guy.
You gave me 9 hours of deposition, and if I said the word idiot, it was an idiot in planning. It wasn't making him an idiot. I don't know Mr. Depp's IQ. I don't know his overall functioning. So therefore, if I said it, it was an idiot in planning, which is what I meant to come across as.
All right. So you did say you don't know his overall functioning, but you made some testimony today as to some evaluations you made relative to his functioning.
Digging himself
You would
straight
agree
into
with
lava.
me that it's probably a good idea to think about the questions that are asked you in a court proceeding before answering.
Am I allowed to answer that question?
Yes.
Okay. So what I said by function, I believe that his agent reported how late he was showing up to every movie while the cast is waiting for him. I believe that would be an impairment. If I showed up late for that, I would not be here right now, would not have a job. Okay.
Oh, that's not true. Doctors are late
In
constantly.
terms of balking out of treatment for substance rehab that his doctor is prescribing for him. So if you're asking me if that's an impairment of functioning, I would say I'm very much substantiated in that.
I'm trying to understand how you got to this notion of cognitive decline. And I thought it was based at least in part on the manner in which he testified.
I'm sorry, what?
On the manner in which he testified.
On the manner, I'm sorry, I'm not being difficult. I can't hear. I'm sorry. On what?
I was asking you about the cognitive decline.
Yes.
Are they escorting someone out of the courtroom?
It was my understanding that at least a portion of that
laughing probably, maybe.
that you rendered was that you derived some evidence of cognitive decline from the way Mr. Depp testified.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's what I said. Yes.
Right. And so all I'm asking you is, don't you think it's a good idea when you're in the middle of a court proceeding to answer questions carefully?
Again, professionally, we diagnose patients with a neurocognitive disorder by gross evaluation.
Just answer
all
the
the
question.
time with cognitive, on the thought that, again, age normal controls. I'm just saying, age normative controls does not put a 58-year-old gentleman at that processing. That's all I'm saying. That's all I said.
And you derive.
Do you agree that
this
you should have processed a
without
little longer
ever
on these
once
answers?
talking to the man.
Me directly talking to him, because we know how I derived it. So you're talking about me directly talking to him?
Yeah, you never talked.
No, I've never talked to him.
Right. And this exam you gave, well, you did talk about Dr. Blaustein, right?
Yes, sir.
And you understand that the entirety of Dr. Blaustein's medical records are 12 pages of handwritten notes.
The important part was what I said. For me, as an example of cognition, which I'm trying to prove, which is what you asked me, the important part was what I said.
Do you have
And that
narcissistic
was
personality disorder?
Irrefutable.
The important part is that he gave the mini mental status exam.
Yes, sir.
All right.
That's
Let's talk about the mini mental status exam. Scored on a 30-point scale, right?
Yes.
All right. And it's an exam that basically is most often used for what, Alzheimer's, dementia, those kind of testing.
It's an exam that tests cognition in all psychiatric illnesses, not just Alzheimer's. It was made for dementia, for Alzheimer's, but has been the standard for testing cognition in all psychiatric illness, substance use disorders included.
Okay. Now, there is an element of that exam that requires drawing, correct?
Yes.
So you don't know what drawing Mr. Depp did or whether the drawing should have been fully scored.
I wasn't questioning his visual spatial perceptual skills, which is what that does.
Right. And you don't know what score Mr. Depp received on the exam.
I was very specific. I know 3 words, not remembering at 5 minutes. That's all I said.
3 words, not remembering 5 minutes, and he remembered one of them, right?
From what I understand, you remember any of them.
All right. Memory on the exam. Out of the 30 points, what's it worth? 3. 3, right? Memory is 3 out of the 30.
Yeah, memory's 3.
Okay.
But again, the memory section in and of itself tests memory. That's the only question that tests memory. Only section that actually tests memory.
So the memory section tests memory. It's the only section you testified about. And for all you know, that with respect to the exam that you're relying on, Mr. Depp scored 27 out of 30.
And that would be telling, though, cognitively, if you score 27 out of 30 and you missed 3 points on memory. That would be very telling.
You don't know if Mr. Depp had been up all night the night before.
Again, you wouldn't expect to not recall any words at 3 minutes unless there's a cognitive issue.
You don't know if Mr. Depp was high.
And again, now that could affect memory, but I'm not refuting that. I'm not refuting that at all. He could have been high, he could have been drunk, he could have been using cocaine, and that would absolutely affect his memory, which is what I said. Yes, you're right.
So ultimately, you have no idea what state Mr. Depp was in at the time he took the exam that you're relying on.
Short of what you just said about drugs and alcohol, okay, there shouldn't be a reason why a 58-year-old also with strokes and other neurocognitive.
Short of that, in someone with an admitted abuse problem?
Why someone at that age shouldn't come up with at least one. But an answer.
But wait a minute, you started that question with short of drugs and alcohol. 35 minutes talking about drugs and alcohol. Am I right?
I'm agreeing. I thought I agreed with you. I think I agreed. I said that drugs and alcohol can absolutely affect cognition. I'm not sure. I agree, but I'm not sure if that's a problem. I agree with you on that.
All right. So you don't know one way or the other how he scored on the exam. You don't know whether he was at the time on drugs and alcohol, but you're going to rely on it in your testimony to say that he's cognitively impaired.
Which is what we do in clinical medicine, sir.
Okay. You rely on a test that you don't know when it was administered, you don't know the score of the test, and you don't know the state of the person being tested, but you're going to rely on it anyway.
Again, if we had to know every test, when people get the mini mental state exam, we have no idea clinically if they are high, wasted, stoned, stroke. We have no idea. So if you're going to say that, that means everybody needs a drug test before they do a mini mental study, and that's not the standard of care. And I think you know that. So
let's talk a little
He has
bit
more?
about
You have more
this word you
knives
kept
in the
using,
sheath?
correlation. You know the word, right?
yes,
Correlation and
Like a
causation.
Hollywood gun that never runs out of bullets.
correlation. No, they're not the same thing.
How are they different?
Correlation is consistent with causation, is direct link.
Can you say that again? You're so fast I didn't hear it.
I'm sorry about that. Correlation is a risk for something happening. Causation is a direct link.
Right. So just because something's correlated doesn't mean it's going to happen.
100%.
Right. Lung cancer, for instance. Smoking is very highly correlated with lung cancer, right?
Yeah, and there's certainly a link
Right.
to lung cancer and smoking.
Right. But not all smokers get lung cancer.
Not all smokers do. No one, like I said, no one fits the curve perfectly.
Right. And you made repeated testimony to all of us. All of us do this. All of us do that.
Mhm.
Your
Get
suggestion,
'em.
all of us, is you're just looking at it as a sample and not at any particular individual, correct?
What I'm looking at is that I'm not talking about an individual, how they can or cannot be resistant. What I'm saying is invariably, when you use substances, this is going to happen. Now, is there a 0.05% chance that someone who does? Absolutely there is. But is that medical degree of certainty? Absolutely not.
A 0.05% chance of what, sir?
Eventually developing symptoms. If you're using excessively, eventually you're going to develop symptoms.
Right. But risk factors tell us nothing about any one particular individual, do they, sir?
No. Again, risk factors tell us nothing except that they have it. They're at a higher likelihood of developing it. That's
Right.
what tells us.
But you did
If they
a whole
have it,
litany
they're
of
likely to
risk
develop it.
factors relative to IPV.
Yes.
Right. And none of those risk factors tell us anything specifically about an individual.
Other than they're at higher risk. Right.
Right. So someone could have every single risk factor for IPV and never commit IPV, right?
It would be, again, if you're going to say a medical degree of probability, the answer is they will. But if you're saying uniformly, the answer is no.
Right. IPV
The only answer is no.
Substance abuse.
Oh, sure.
Someone can abuse substances without ever perpetrating IPV.
Again, absolutely. But again, you are saying different than what I said.
Not saying anything.
I did not say abusing substance. I said substance use disorder. Those are two different things, because there are surely people who use substances that do not engage in any violence, do not become psychotic.
There we go.
So
And that's
absolutely.
equally true of people who have substance abuse disorder. There are certainly people who have substance abuse disorder who don't commit IPV, correct?
They are saying people who have substance use disorders, the majority of them, over 50% do. So over 50% do. So that's medical.
The
Now we're
answer
at over
is
50%.
So there's 49%.
Yes. As you said, not everyone who smokes gets lung cancer.
so. There are significant numbers of people. You said it was over 50. So you'd say 40% of the people who have substance abuse disorder don't commit IPV.
And those are the ones that do not have IPV risk factors, right? So we're talking about people
Wait a
who
minute.
don't.
Isn't substance abuse disorder and IPV risk factor?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
These are other people that don't have other risk factors, right?
Other risk factors.
God, somebody
But again,
throw in the white
You're talking
towel.
about
This
people
is
in general. You don't know anything about any particular individual as to whether anybody's going to commit IPV.
If statistics follow through, all we can say
the
is
question.
more than 50%, 70% will. If you combine more risk factors you have, the more likely you're going to develop the illness. If you smoke cigarettes once, that might not correlate to lung cancer. If you smoke it chronically, that might. So
Right.
that's
but
all I'm
we're
saying.
talking about individuals here. You either have lung cancer or you don't, right?
If you're smoking,
Right.
right.
You either commit IPV or you didn't.
I mean, yeah, you either did or you didn't. Yes.
Right. So you took some issue with me because I was asking about substance abuse generally, and you wanted me to talk about the disorder. I asked you earlier about narcissistic personality disorder,
Mhm.
and you haven't made that diagnosis. You've just talked about the traits, right?
Yes.
And somebody can have these narcissistic personality traits and substance abuse disorder and never commit IPV, right?
So along that line,
Right.
about 80 to 90% of people who commit IPV have a personality disorder.
What do
So
you
the
base
answer
that
is
on?
less than about 10% obviously do not.
What study is that from?
There are more close links with IPV for borderline personality disorder than narcissistic personality disorder. Correct, sir?
I'm not going to agree with that.
No?
I'm not saying there are more links. I would say to you, there are absolute. If you're asking me, there are links. The answer is absolutely. If you're saying to me more, I can show studies. Say yes, show studies. Say that has not been absolutely definitively correlated. No,
No.
absolutely not.